Hi and welcome to Hskrc 9 In today's episode I'm gonna do the assembly of a 9-inch quad frame. It's the Hskrc Xl9 frame. I'm gonna simply do the pure frame assembling, no electronics installation. We have a first look at all the parts and how this looks after the assembling. So first let's have a look what we get inside the box. These are the top plates and bottom plates. Most of the plates are 2mm plates. At the end of the video we're gonna go through the built up frame and have a look at every single plate, which size every plate has. Then we have the arms. These are 4mm arms. And we get some hardware, all the spacers and stack mount screws and nuts, all nylon screws and nuts. Then we have more hardware, more screws in different length, all M3 screws. And we have some press nuts which you have to push inside the carbon plate holes and they stay in place. You cannot lose them. That's a nice feature of these press nuts. Then you got some foam parts. One is for your battery mount and the other foam parts are the arm pads, the landing pads, to protect your frame or your arms from any damage if you land on hard surfaces. And last but not least, you got a simple manual which shows the different sizes you can get of the quad and also in exact millimeters how big the frame is. Mine is the 9-inch version, which is 390 millimeters in diameter, and you have a graphic which shows you how to assemble the frame. Before I put the frame together, I'm gonna sand down all the edges just to make them a little bit round to avoid damages on the edges, on easy crashes. I'm gonna use this quad not as an FPV quad, but as a replacement for my old school line of sight quad frame. Recently on a flight I had a little crash, no big deal, but this weak plastic breaks pretty easy, so I had a broken arm. Then I checked what I can buy, but these frames are around $20 and this Hskrc 9-inch frame is around $25. So I decided to go for a carbon frame, which is way stronger with 4mm carbon arms. I can crash it, flying line of sight aerobatics, and have no damage on the frame. So first let's do the sanding and then let's assemble the frame. So this is how the assembled frame looks. It's so far so good. For $25 it's pretty okay, but there are some downsides and we're gonna go through now all the specs and all the details and also a little mod I had to do already on the frame. After finishing the assembling, I realized that there are some spare screws and some spare nuts in the kit, which is pretty nice. Then the structure of the carbon on the arms is in line with the arm direction, so the stiffness is okay for a 9-inch frame. You can bend it a little bit, but I think for this length of arms the strength of the carbon is pretty okay. Then I checked out all the measurement. We have 30mm spacers all around, 8 pieces. Then all the carbon plates, the bottom plate, the plate on top of the arms and the top plate are a little more than 2mm plates. The plates for the camera mount are 1.5mm and there are a lot of options to mount your FPV cam. So that's a pretty nice piece. One little downside is that the carbon piece is a little higher than your spacers, so if you tighten up the spacers, you really have to tighten up hard to eliminate the gap between the spacer and the bottom and the top plate. The arms are 4mm arms, they're also a little thicker than 4mm. Then you have the holes for the motors. These are holes which work for 16 up to 19mm motor mounts. So you can also use your usual 22, 23 size motors which you have on the 5-inch, 6-inch and other quads. The width of the arm is between 16 and 17 millimeters. I think if you crash hard, this will break for sure, but I'm gonna use it for line of sight, so there will be just easy crashes in low level maneuvers, so I don't think that I will break these arms. In my opinion, the frame is surprisingly light. It's around 150 grams. I think that's pretty okay for a big 9-inch frame. Then let's have a look at the mod I had to do. The outer holes to mount your arms are drilled in 4mm size, but the screws you put in are 3mm size. So you have a big amount of play, and I had to do some spacers out of brass to eliminate that play, and the result is way better now. The arms are absolutely free of play. The also downside what you had, the play is one thing. The other thing is that if you mount it with a too big hole, every single arm has another angle to the frame. So that doesn't help in case of flight characteristics. So I think the mod is pretty important. And I checked the distance from every arm tip to the frame, and now everything is really exactly in the same angle to the frame. Another downside of these 4mm holes is that these are on a spot where the arms break pretty easy, and the bigger hole ends up in an easier breaking arm. So that's another downside. If they would only drill 3mm holes, the arm would be even stronger at the weakest point to the frame. But I'm pretty happy how the modification went out like this. The frame is pretty clean built and it will work. The diameter from motor to motor is 390 millimeters. This is a bit smaller than my old school frame I used for line of sight until today. This was a 500 millimeter frame, but I think the size will be big enough for flying line of sight. So next step will be to swap all the electronics from my old school frame into this new 9-inch frame. Build review and first test flights video will follow soon. So this is all for today. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video. Have a good time. Bye bye.